All right, hello everybody. Looks like everybody's getting connected to audio and whatnot. All right. Well, welcome back and thanks so much for taking the time to join us again. Um, as a reminder, I'm Tyler McIntosh. I work at the Earth Lab and I am helping coordinate and facilitate the Codefest. And today we are going to be getting everybody up and going on some of our infrastructure um, and GitHub. And so the first thing that we want to do is have everybody start dropping their GitHub usernames into this spreadsheet that I'm going to post, which should now be in the chat. And so sort of right off the bat, if you can just put your GitHub username in that spreadsheet, then Eric, who is our software engineer at ESOL, can start getting everybody set on the team that we will be using for today. So while everybody is doing that, yeah, welcome back. And today we will be focusing on sort of three different things. We will be looking at our cyber infrastructure that we'll be using for the event, looking at how to use GitHub to work collaboratively and build the website that your team will be using, and then also taking a quick look at some of the data that has been prepared for you. And we will be talking more about data next week, which is when you'll have more time to really start to engage with your team. To start off, though, we do want to announce your teams. This is going to be helpful for you today because you'll be working on those websites that you'll then have for each of your teams. So here is the lists. I can share my screen really quickly. So this is the core Forest Carbon Codefest website that we will be using. And on this home page, when we scroll down, we have all of the lists of your teams here. So team 1 will be Lily, Charles, Alex, Ethan, and Nicole. Team 2 will be Leonard, Mike, Mihir, Dafang, and Sarah. Team 3 will be Jaiming, Martha, Asha, Eric, and Tatum. Team 4 will be Elizabeth, Hutch, Max, Hillary, and Kit. Team 5, Ryan, Rachel, Julia, Ashley, and Shaik. And 6 will be Natalie, Bree, Kylan, Tyler, and Luis. I can drop that link here for you so that each of you can take a look as well. And after the event today, you will all also get access to a team Slack channel, which you'll be able to use from here on out during the event. You should also note on this page that there is a team lead designation column, and that's something that will become important a little bit later on as Ty is working through who will be creating the team repository on GitHub that you'll be making from the template that we have prepared. And I think without further ado, I can pass that off to Ty. Ty, is there anything else that you need before you get going?
No, that's great. Thank you so much. All right, everybody. I'm going to share my screen. Let me close my emails. I've been told that my email count gives people anxiety because I have over 7,000 unread emails. So for those of you that keep an inbox of 0, I aspire to be you someday. Okay. First, let me shrink this down so I don't keep running that button. First, we're going to go to the easel GitHub. And so everybody can go to the easel GitHub for me if you want. Let's start. GitHub, easel. That's going to take us to our institutional GitHub page. So this whole GitHub institution holds all of the repos for all of the stuff that's produced within easel. And down here, Tyler and others have been hard at work at creating a repo called Forest Carbon Codefest. This has a lot of stuff that you will want to use, but what we're going to do is actually use this as a template. So everybody can go to this to see this, but not everybody's going to create one, only one per team. So if you remember that link that Tyler sent you, that one's not the homepage. Homepage right here, down at the bottom, right here, there's an asterisk next to your name. So first, make sure that you know what team you're on and that your team lead is here. If your team lead is not here, somebody in the team needs to take on that role for today. But right now, in this list, we assigned team leads. And those team leads are going to be the one to create the actual repo right now with us. And then all of the team members can hop in just a second. Okay. So let me show you around real quick. In this, there are a bunch of folders that we need. There is a README folder, a README file that you see immediately. And we're going to play with that in just a second. And then when I come up here, there is a web page link. And when I click on that, that takes me to this web page that you've seen. So the web page for the Codefest is on the GitHub. It's a GitHub Actions page. It's a GitHub page. Okay. So we're going to try to make use of all of that functionality. So for the team leads, what you're going to do is come up here and say, use this template. And you're going to create a new repository. And in that repository, I want you to not make the owner you. I want you to come down and make the owner CU easel. And then put in whatever you want your repository name is to be. So this should be your group name. You're going to have a whole training session next week and all of the Codefest to do a bunch of team science where you can come up with a really cool name and you can come back and change this. So right now, just put team 1, team 2, team 3, team 4, whatever or team A or some just placeholder for the name, and we can go change it later if you want to.
Ty, should they put something like FCC-team1 to designate?
Oh, yes. Yeah, thank you. Yep. Yeah, so as you can see, there are a lot of repos on the easel institution, and we want to keep these groups sort of clumped together as a little bit of group. So if you can do FCC for Forest Carbon Codefest and then 24, so FCC 24, and then group 1, group 2, group 3, something like that. That helps us organize these a little bit.
Looks like we also have a few people who don't see CU-easel as an option.
Okay, if you don't see cu.easel as an option, that means that you haven't been added to permissions yet. And that's why we had you add your GitHub name at the beginning. So this was one of the things we were going to work on. So go back to the chat. In the chat, there is the very first link to the Google page. When you go to this Google page, it should have names and usernames. And I'm going to close that just so I'm not publishing it online or on the video, but just go on there and make sure your name is on there. Eric
and then they will get an invitation.
Go ahead. What?
And then it looks like they'll get an invitation. Eric, how do they go about accepting that if they haven't already?
Yeah, you should have a notification when you go to your GitHub that you received an invitation. Everybody's been invited, so just make sure that you accept that before you attempt to clone or use the template.
Yeah, but we're working. Go ahead and message us in the chat with your specific name, and Eric can make sure your name is on there in particular. You might have to refresh or back out. That's here's an example name that we might have. FCC 24 group 1. And again, you'll be able to change this. Amazing group 1. And then the other thing I want to do is I want to make it public. So we're just going to hang out and wait until everybody gets theirs started. So if you're having troubles, don't panic. I'm just helping people who aren't having troubles just get to the end real quick. When you hit create repository, I'm not going to, I'll go ahead and do this and then I can delete it. Because I'm probably competing with whatever group number 1 is. Here it is.
Are there any tech leads who have not been able to get that invite? Okay.
I'm gonna stop sharing real quick and just so we can see hands up if anybody.
All right. Elizabeth, looks like we are still getting you the invite, right?
Yeah, that's right.
I'm seeing a FCC 24 group 6. We have our first success. Nice job, group 6. Thank you. We're coming online soon. Eric, we have somebody just put their username in the chat.
Yeah, Elizabeth, it looks like that username is added to the group. So let me double check that.
Do you know what email is associated with that, Elizabeth?
I saw a question about public repo, but as I'm looking at group 6, they made it a private repo. So maybe group 6, could you go and edit so that your repo is public instead of private? And for anybody else, try to make it public. Ooh, group 5 create.
I think I missed something. I got the invitation, I accepted it, and then I can see the Forest Carbon Codefest GitHub in my account. So now I create a new repo, right, from this?
Okay, great. Yeah, let me just run through it again. Now that a couple people are caught up with permissions, I'll just show you live how we would do this again. So,
Thank you.
oh, my pleasure. Thank you for asking. I'm sure you were not the only one with the question. Okay, so here is the template repo. You can click on that, or from the main page, if you just wanted to go to the add button up here, create new, you could do it from there too. But let me go down and do it the way I did before so I don't confuse people. Okay, I am going to the repo that we set up, the Forest Carbon Codefest. Up here in the top right, it says use this template. I'm going to create a new repository. Here under owner, this is where people were getting hung up, but hopefully we fixed that for some people. You click it and we go down and you should see CU Easel as the owner instead of your private name.
Okay, I think I do not get that option. When
You don't get that option yet.
Yeah, I click use this template and I go to that page, but I do not see the option of
Yeah, you see just your username right here, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that means that you have not been added yet to the teams.
Okay.
And that is what Eric's working on. So let's keep working on getting your username attached to the permissions for this.
Okay.
That way you'll be able to edit this afterwards too. So yeah, go ahead and in the chat, make sure we have your username, and Eric's working on getting you permission. As soon as we get you through that, then let's come back and try this again.
Eric, do you know how to find the invites on GitHub if people aren't finding them in their emails?
Yeah, they are kind of difficult to find on GitHub. It should be like if you go to your homepage, usually there's like a header that says you've received an invitation, but email is going to be the best way to find these.
Could you try sharing your screen and showing people where it would be on GitHub?
Yeah, is anyone having difficulty finding the invitation?
We have
Yeah.
one, check this username in the chat. That's the one who's having a problem right now.
Yes, I just added you.
Okay.
So I have your
And I think Elizabeth also.
Elizabeth. Okay. Let's see.
All right. So try that again, maybe.
Let me see. Let me just share my. Yeah, so if you just go to your homepage, you should see in your notification feed, you should see invitations here.
All right. So I see a group 4, a group 5, and a group 6. And I know we have at least one other group working on it. Can I confirm that we have someone in all 6 groups actually working on it? We're not missing a team or something. We're just still struggling to get through setup.
I have literally just seen that I was supposed to be the new tech lead for group 1. Sorry.
No worries. No worries.
I wasn't watching the messages.
No worries. Thanks. Yeah. Do you mind going and trying it now? You can see why we do this ahead of time, because all of this just takes so long getting everyone logged in. Might as well do it while we're in the comfort of our own home and not stealing time away from our delicate code festing, huh? But it just always takes a long time. So everybody try to be patient with us.
I still don't see the option in my repo. Group 3.
Is there anybody else from group 3 who has seen that they got an invitation? Tatum, looks like you're in group 3.
Yeah, I can attempt to do it.
Okay, why don't you give that a go and see if it works?
Okie dokie.
My guess is it's just caught up in some delays in like
Yeah.
when they're being registered. If it continues, don't just drop out on us. If the problem continues, let's keep working on it. But we might send you to a little breakout room with Eric at some point.
Yeah, so Elizabeth, it looks like your invitation is still pending. So just check your email one more time. I'm sure you have, but the one that's maybe associated with the GitHub account.
I just saw it and accepted it, and I can get into the page now. It does sound like someone else from group 4 got a repository set up. So
Sweet.
Yeah, I might have accidentally done that being in group 2. Apparently, I lost the links. So just to, the icing on the cake confusion.
Cool, well, I think group 4 can still just use that one then. But do you want to go and make the group 2 one as well?
And we need permissions for everyone so that they can push and pull and edit after these things are built. So don't opt out of this process just because you're not the tech lead. Everybody should go and just make sure that, yeah, and you're not creating the repo, but make sure that we have your username in there. Ooh, I see 3 created. Oh, I see a 1.
And Leonard is working on 2. So then can people raise their hand if they have not gotten the invite and made sure that they can have access to push and pull from these repos. So Shake, you have not gotten yours, and Ethan. Okay. Okay. Naomi, do you maybe want to put Shake and Ethan in a room with Eric really quickly to make sure that that's set up?
Yes.
And I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 group repos. Yes. Nice job, team. Okay. Everybody feeling like we're going to catch up a couple people who need their login to GitHub, but otherwise everybody's feeling caught up, feeling good. Okay. That's what we like to see. Okay. So now we are going to move on to Markdown. So again, on this main page that you looked at for lists, this is going to be our go-to web page for the whole thing. On the left here, we are going to go, so on the left, I'm going collaborating on the cloud, Markdown basics. I'll stick that in the chat. Put this, this is just a helper page for some of the Markdown syntax. And I'm going to scroll through this quickly, but then I'm going to go to where I actually want you to deal with this. So if you scroll down through here, it tells you just general coding syntax for making Markdown work in different ways and different ways that you would want to do it. Let's go now back to our repo. So here I'm going to go to the example repo that I made for my amazing group, pretend number 1. And you're going to notice that the very first thing we want to do is go and modify this README table, movie file. Now, again, there's a lot of team science to be done here in describing this. All I want to do right now is just give you the technical ability to go in and edit this. So we're all going to just make one tiny edit and then move on with our life. But when you come in next week and you have, and the week, and for the Codefest, when you start working with your team, one of the first things you're going to do is use this as a platform for narrowing down and clarifying and communicating your ideas. Okay? So in here, there is an edit button right here at the top. And that just brings up the raw Markdown. So this is Markdown. Markdown is what's called a markup language. It is just a language that is built to describe other languages. So it's largely a text-based language that translates really nicely to HTML, so it can make websites really easily. So things like the double hash are telling it that it's a header. Things like this are telling it to make it a list. Things like this is to bold or italicize different things. All of those all of those cheats are in this syntax document of like, how do I make a header and do different things? Okay. So the first thing you're going to do is come in here and just say, so again, this is my example 1. This is my team 1 example. And I'm going to come up and commit changes. Just like I would, this is a normal GitHub thing. I have to say what my message is for my commit. Then I wanted to go to the main branch, commit my change. And now those changes went into the change log and it changes my README file. Okay, so now when I go back to my intro thing, I now have a new name. Okay, so editing any of these Markdown files is as easy as hitting the edit button, changing the words, and then hitting the commit button, and you're set. So in your group, as long as you guys aren't trying to commit over the top of each other, as long as you're doing it one at a time, there's no conflicts. So if somebody wants to go in, I'd like it to be somebody other than somebody that set up the repo. So not your tech lead, some other person from the team. Go on there, and you guys can talk out loud if you need to communicate, so you don't have to kill yourself with chat. But you can say, "Hey, I'm going to go for team one," and just go on and just edit something. Again, you're not sticking with a name, but I just want you to go and make an edit and commit it just to show you how easy this is, and if you have any problems with it. Yeah, I see some people calling out in the chat that they're going to do it for their team, which I love. Okay, I had a question in the chat about having to do a pull request instead of being able to edit directly. That's if you're getting the if they're requiring you to do a pull request, then that probably means your permissions are not in for the team for that repo. So that's one of the things we're trying to work on here. So maybe go over and during the workout, let's work with Eric again to make sure your permissions are set.
Ty, can you also check that all of the teams are public?
Yes. Oh yeah, good call, because that could be a public. They should all be fine. Now when I go to form.
So it looks like there are a number of people getting the fork this repo.
Yeah, okay. Is Eric here? Is he in the
Eric's in a breakout.
I think we just need the name of the team.
Oh, Eric's back.
There it is. Eric,
Yep.
the permissions were not passed on to all of the derivative repos. We need to add the teams to each one of those.
Okay.
People are getting pull requests and fork command stuff, messages when they're trying to do edits.
Okay, when they're trying to push to those repos.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the team got attached to the template, but didn't get attached to the derivatives.
Okay, let me work on this for a second.
Thank you. To give everybody an idea of, you just need a list of people who have permissions to change a repo. And GitHub has this thing where you can make a team. And so all of you are now part of the Codefest team, and then you can give that team permission to things. So you don't have to go list everybody individually. So Eric has made a team of everybody, and he can go and just say, for each one of those repos, let this team have permission. And so everybody has permission to all the repos. But that might take just a second.
Yeah, I just added the team for group 3. I'm gonna go through the rest of the teams now, but if you just want to test that, group 3.
Perfect. So whoever our group 3 tester was, you get to be our guinea pig.
Has anybody from team 3 had success trying to just edit that README file at all?
I did. At least I think so.
That's awesome. Well, if you let you commit, then you're good to go. So that's really good news.
Okay, cool.
Just give Erica another minute to get everybody else set up, and then we'll do our next check. But as you can see, we're not necessarily learning skills right now, but we're checking off that all of your CI credentials are all working, and we won't have to deal with these problems on the day of.
Leonard, the answer is yes. I can actually release those right now. I was going to release them after, but that's a good call. We can just make those Slack channels available now.
Awesome, thanks.
All right, they should all be good to go now. If everyone wants to test, they can update the README or make edits.
Nicole has a really thoughtful question about, do we think past or present tense for commit messages? Anybody have opinion? Past tense. Mine are usually just swear words. They're like either really boring and indescriptive or really angry swear words. So I'm not a very good example of proper commit etiquette. All right, I was looking through some repos and I'm seeing some cool edits. So team 6 is edited, team 3 is edited, team 4 is edited.
So if you haven't personally edited, go in and maybe add your name to the list of participants on that README.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Try not to directly compete with somebody else on your team, but yeah, if you haven't edited, go ahead and go try it. Change a word here or there.
So it looks like team 5 is the only one having problems at this point. Are there any other teams not able to access that?
For team 5, I see the Codefest 2024 team added to the access. So
I was just able to make a commit on team 5.
Awesome. Then I think, Ty, we can move forward.
Sounds great. Even while I'm moving ahead, if you haven't done an edit yet, go ahead and just pop in there and try it while we're doing it. Just want to make sure you feel comfortable just making a quick edit.
So if you're still having problems, put that in the chat and Nayani can place you in a room with Eric really quickly to make sure that you're able to commit to that repo.
Okay, now you're going to notice that your website instantly broke. So if I go back to the template, there is this really nice link to the website. And as soon as we forked it, as soon as we forked it in a bunch of repos, all of the derivative ones stopped working. So my guess is any one of these that I pull up should show the same thing. There's a blank document right here. Okay. The reason for that is because you copied exactly what was in the template repository, which means that the URL for the website is overlapping and it errors out and just won't let you do it. So we're going to use this as a lesson just for the general control of the web page. So down here, this is the home page of your repo. I'm in group 5 right now. And I scroll down and there's this one called mkdocs.yaml. YAML is our second language that we're going to learn today. So we learned markdown instantly. And that's our main documentation language, was markdown. YAML is a language just to direct how things are read and how things are moved around and how things are dealt with. And so here the YAML is for our website. So this one that I opened, this mkdocs, this controls everything about that web page. So what is the name of the site? What's the site descriptor? Who's the author? Here is the crucial one, the site URL. You need to change that to be, FCC24 group 1 or whatever your team name is. The repository name, you need to change to match the repository name. And you need to make this the repository URL. Changing those 3 lines should make your website work. So in here, we go again to the edit button, edit this file. You're going to go down and just put in the correct information for what you want your site URL to be, which means, you know, this first part has to be fixed. You only get to change this last part. You change the repo name and you change the repo URL. And then you commit those changes and your website should work. So if I could get the tech leads, I'm going to cancel these changes so I don't make them for group 5, but get the tech leads to go in. Again, here's your front page. From the front page, I'm going down and finding this thing called mkdocs.yaml. I open up the mkdocs YAML from my group, and I go edit those 3 lines.
Could you go over the 3 lines one more time? I missed the
Yep,
third.
let me do it for my example repo real quick.
Thank you.
So here's my example repo. So here's the name of my repo. I'm going to copy that so I can use it. mkdocs. I'm going to go over here and edit. And then in here, I'm going to say, okay, my repo name is this. My URL will be this. And the site URL. Oh, sorry. The site URL will be this. The we have to. Oops, again. Here's that's the URL.
Hi, once we commit the change and we go back to like the main page of our group, should we see a link to the website there?
You will in just a few minutes. So let me show
Okay.
you. So let me say commit change here, commit. And now if I go up to actions, it's going to show me right now it's reading the whole thing. So it's going to show you the progression. You're going to go through this, and then it's going to have to do one more, which is like to build the website. And that might take a couple minutes. Both of those will turn green. So this one will turn green, one more will turn green, and then it'll be good to go. Hopefully. We'll see. But we'll watch this. This is also where it reports if there's an error. You'll get a big red thing.
Also, while this is going on, all of the team's Slack channels should be up. So if you can go and make sure that you have access to those, and then drop in the chat here if you do not have access to it, and I can try and make sure, yeah, figure out what's wrong.
Quick question on the workflows. I don't think all my workflows triggered. I have a green check mark, but I clicked through and I didn't see the 3 workflows.
When you click through the actions, you didn't see the workflow here.
Oh, the actions. I know I clicked the check mark. Sorry, I'll try.
Yeah, so up at the top, hit actions, and it should take you to here. Let's see. And that, I think we have one more. Oh, it did that automatically. Is Eric back by chance?
Yep.
Eric, this website, did I miss something on this YAML file? The website's not, the URL is not popping up in this corner. Like,
If you go to the settings there, on that the little gear on the next to your about right there, Okay. So usually it will
It has like
give
a,
you. So that's group one. All right, let me.
this is my like little example group one.
Okay, let me go to settings.
Eric, does he need to go up to settings at the very top there, and say that he wants the website to be built from the YAML?
Oh yeah. So go to the repo settings at the very top, all the way on the right. Different settings, and that the top, yeah, right there. And then if you go to pages on,
Yeah, right.
and then you're gonna have to do so branch the drop down right below that one. So yeah, deploy from branch, and then GitHub pages, that branch there.
Yeah.
Then save that. Yeah, that's always
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Eric.
all
All right,
yep.
everybody, let me go over that because I had forgotten a step. The trigger here was that, yeah, we thought that it should have put this up automatically. The reason it didn't do that is because we don't have it triggering a GitHub pages action, because you have to do that. So up here in the settings, not this one, but this settings right here, this is in your repo for the team. You're going to click on that settings. And down on the left, there's pages. This is GitHub pages. And then not the first menu, but the second menu down here, you have options. It was on main, and you want to change it to GitHub pages, and then hit save. And here it said your site is now live. And it says, do you want to visit your site? So now I can visit the site, and I have my own version of that website.
Is there any reason as to why it would say our website is not live, or we don't see that when we did everything the same that you did?
It might check your actions. It might be building.
Actions is done.
Which group are you in?
6.
All right, I'll check it out.
Here's the beauty of everything being open and public, right? We come in here. We can say, let's check the YAML file. You got that changed. You got that changed. You got that changed. It might be this space. The YAML files are a little punctuation dependent, but let's see here now.
It looks like it's up. If you can just refresh the homepage for that repo. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it just took a minute.
I see it now. Thank you.
Yeah, you just already done a great job of it. Okay, so let's check now. Okay, so I still don't see the website up here, but I think this is now, if you click this little gear on the right, now this is the thing that we were looking for that we didn't see. You click that, and it now is saying, I'm going to display that, and you save changes. And now it displays that for you.
Are there any teams that have not been able to get their site up?
See, number one is deploying. There we go. There's a group one. Five up.
Looks like the rest of them are up. Cool.
Sweet. All right, we're almost done with this, and we're moving on to something else. I just want to show you real quick that this website you now own. You can go, you know, like you have Tyler's version of this, but all this is markdown. If you want to go edit your new front page for your group, you just go to the edit and go and start editing to your heart's content, and make yourself a new web page. And ChatGPT is really good at making markdown. So if you have something that you want, you can put it in there and say, just convert this to markdown and copy and paste it in here for nice formatting. But it's a cool place for your group to now make a website describing your project, describing the thinking behind your project. You now can just send people a link to this website forever, showing them your project from this Codefest, all the code and everything associated with it. I think that's pretty cool. Under docs, everything for the website is in the docs folder, has to be. So in the docs folder, you can go and add more markdown files. All of these are just individual markdown pages. And I just make the markdown file somewhere else. And then you plop it in this folder. And the only thing we have to do after we add something is we go back to our MK docs YAML, our main directions for the whole website. And I come down here and I add the pages. So this nav tree is saying, okay, I'm going to have something called the home page, and it is just in a markdown with the name index. I'm going to have then a sublist called collaboration in the cloud. This is where you guys are at right now. In there, I'm going to have a markdown basics. So that's what it's called in the sidebar. And then here, I just give the path name to that markdown document. So markdown documents are easy to copy, paste, save, share, modify, edit within GitHub. It's just a really nice thing. So if you're starting to add new data sets, go ahead and add new data sets. If you want to add your own documentation, add more documentation. If you want to start doing all kinds of manuscript building in here, you can do that all in these MK docs. Okay. So with that, go ahead.
Hi, one thing really quickly. We'll talk about this again at the event itself, but in terms of actually presenting at the end, when you're presenting to your peers what your project was, they will also be wanting to look and make sure that everything is open and accessible and documented on this website. So you will be able to either present from your website directly, or you can generate a PDF of slides, load that to your website, and then present from those slides.
Okay, so we have gotten through several major steps. I think we need a 5-minute bio break. Take a deep breath, step away from the computer for 1 second, okay? And then we'll come back and we'll move into cyverse. So everybody turn your camera off, go do a 5-minute bio break. We'll actually do a 7-minute bio break. So let's meet back here at 12:58. Welcome back, everybody. Hope you had a nice few jumping jacks or stretches or any Pilates session, whatever it is you did. All right. We are going to leave GitHub, but I need you to leave it open for a couple more minutes for a couple things. So let's go to 2 pages. You're going to need links as we move forward. So let me close some of these. Okay. Okay, so back to the main web page that is the source of everything that you need today. We have done the markdown basics, has the little syntax that we went over. We are going to move into the cyverse basics. So you can click on cyverse basics from the Carbon website. You want that open. You want a second sheet open, a second tab open, and in that, it got buried a little bit. You're going to have to go down and view all repositories. We need one called ESL utils or cyverse utils. This one, I'll put this link in the chat so people can find it. And then the last one that you need open is your repository. So mine right here is my example one. Okay, so I have 3 tabs open. I have 1 tab open to my repo, your group's repo. I have 1 tab open to the cyverse utils. And I have 1 tab open to the connecting to cyverse and GitHub, the cyverse basics webpage from the event website. So first we're going to go from this website, we're going to hit this link and it's going to take us to cyverse.org. And cyverse looks like this. Okay, this always confuses me, but there are 2 cyverse websites. So this is like the overall cyverse website where it's like their institutional website. Down here where it says discovery environment, this is really, when I say cyverse to you guys, this is what I'm saying. This is my shorthand. I'm saying, let's go to the discovery environment. So this is what the discovery environment looks like. It looks a lot the same, but it's a completely different place. So we want to discover the cyverse discovery environment. So I found that one way. I often will just go cyverse DE, and it's the discovery environment for cyverse, and that takes you to the same place. But just recognize I get confused frequently when I go to the wrong one, and I'm like, wait, where is all my stuff? And it just doesn't have it. Now, you have to go to that main website when you sign up for an account. So those of you, I think everybody here has an account. If you don't have an account yet with cyverse, you're going to have to go do that now on that original website, not on the DE. And you will have to log in both of those places. So you'll go to the main cyverse website, you'll log in, manage your account, your subscription from there. But then when you click over to the DE, it will usually log you out and you'll have to log back in. Right now I know I'm logged in because it has a T up here instead of just the cyverse logo. Just as we navigate around the DE a little bit, up here are notifications. These have not generally been that useful for me. They just generally tell you like when you've started or stopped something, but those are logged in lots of other places. This will tell you if something's been shut down against your will or behind your back or when you weren't noticing or something. Now over here in the home, it's telling me generally what type of subscription I have. So right now I have a commercial one with lots of core hours. All of you have just been set up with a basic free account. you are associated with this workshop. When you run out, we have the ability to bump up that subscription to higher and higher subscriptions. So we encourage you to go and use this a lot. Try to run out, try to max out of this thing, and let us bump you up and bump you up and bump you up and give you better services. That makes all of us look good, as long as we're not wasting it, as long as we're using it for useful things. Okay, we have Brianna already ran out. Does that mean you've been using it before? Could you give me a few details on it? Yeah, from before. Okay. So we'll add that to the list for a bump up. We have a request in already. Now we have to request those for cyverse. They're not instant. So you're going to be out for this demo, but probably by the end of the day or early tomorrow, you'll be bumped up and you'll have a new threshold. So cool. Anybody else in that boat of having done this before and already run out? Cool. All right. So everybody, you're going to start with like a 5 gig limit and some amount of computation limit, and it's fine. Just burn through those, use them up, just use them wisely. And then when you run out, let us know and we'll bump you up. And we'll be able to do that as long as we have sort of our cyverse partnership with Easel. Okay. We're going to go into data later. Okay. The apps are the main thing you're going to go to first. So there are two sort of apps pages. There's one with this grid on the left, and there's one called analyses. So I guess analyses and apps are the different things we're talking about here. I'm going to start with an app and then go to analyses. Okay. Apps. These are Docker containers that people have set up for you ahead of time. Specifically, we have Eric has made a really nice one called the Jupyter Lab Easel. And then there is one that is not public yet, but will be public by next week, is a specific RStudio. So the first one that I showed you here, this Jupyter Lab Easel, it has RStudio in it. It's just a little bit weird to use RStudio inside of a Jupyter Lab sometimes. And so some people that are just exclusively R users want to use just the R container. But essentially, these are suites of software that Eric has already pre-compiled that live in perpetuity. So we're going to go right now to this Easel Jupyter Lab. And then up here, we have different versions. Another thing that, let's be too expanded. So right now there's one called macro systems. We have submitted one called forest carbon, FCC 24 that will be published by next week when you start really fussing around with these containers. It's published, they just cyverse hasn't put it up here yet. But what that means is that there is a container sealed in time for this event. So right now I'm going to pick macro systems. You're going to see it's going to be the same container as you'll have. Yours will just be a time sealed version. And so that means that any code that you develop during this Codefest, anytime in the future that you want to go run that code again, you can go back to the container that you used during the Codefest and just run everything on that container. It'll be on Docker Hub. You can find it wherever you want. It'll be on cyverse. You can go and just select it. You can select the old computer that you used. I'll show you in real time. It's really fast. So here's macro systems. The question was, how long does this take? So I hit submit. Now I have choices. Okay. We have another person who's at the limit in the chat. So yeah, we just need to bump you up to a bigger subscription. Okay. So in here, we have specially asked cyverse to take the governor off of the RAM limits. So you actually can pick really big machines right off the bat. So here I could pick up to 128 cores. I'm going to do 4 just so I don't burn through a bunch of core hours just to show you how to turn the thing on. Memory, I can go up to 250 gigs of memory on the RAM chip here. I'm only going to do 16 just to keep it smaller. And then minimum disk space, this is the virtual disk. So there is going to be a networked storage that we can have as much storage as you want on, but when you actually start up this virtual machine, you have to specify how much space do you want it to be able to store on that. Usually you don't need very much if you're using a lot of cloud optimized stuff. Right here, I'll give it 64 gigs just so I have enough. So you can go big though, right? Like I can go 0.5 terabyte of memory. I can go 250 gigs of RAM, and I can go 128 cores. That's a lot of computer. If I want it. Now I hit next. And I just check everything's go. And now here's to answer that question of how long it takes. So we launch the analysis. The longest I've ever seen this take is like a minute. There it goes. It was already ready. Go to analysis. And now it's launching here. So we'll see in real time. It does not take very long. Maybe if you ask for that 250 gig, it might take, 10 or 15 minutes to pull all those resources together, but I've never seen it take that long. It's always been within a minute. Kit, did that answer your question?
That did answer one of my questions, but I had to request access to the Vice, like to use the actual thing. And I was wondering how long it would take for my request to be approved so I can follow along.
Ty, can you walk through making sure that they're enrolled in the workshop? Because all their emails should be set to be pre-authenticated, but they'll still need to enroll.
Yeah, Eric, can I pass that off to you to talk about the workshop authentication?
So, okay, can you mute? All right, yeah, so in order to have access to the cyverse DE, if you weren't part of a workshop, you would need to request access. So Tyler's going to show here, but since we're part of a workshop, you'll get access to the discovery environment without having to go through the application process once you register for the Forest Carbon Codefest workshop. So Tyler, do you want to take it from here and just show exactly which URL to go to and things like that?
Sure, happy to. So this link right here is back at the beginning. And when you go to that link, you should see a list of workshops. It won't be up here for you if you haven't enrolled yet. It will be down in the list of upcoming workshops, but you'll see Forest Carbon Codefest.
This is in the regular cyverse website, not the DE website.
And then if you click on that, you should see an enroll button. And I've already enrolled, so it's grayed out, but you have been added to a list of pre-approvals. So as long as you are using the email that you gave us and you hit enroll, then you'll be added to that workshop and you'll get access to Vice apps, the discovery environment, and a basic amount of compute allocation.
It looks like they enrolled and now enrollment is pending. So maybe Kit just hit refresh and see it. It no longer is pending. But this is a great time to pause and make sure that everybody is caught up to this point. So, again, these are the important things we're trying to do now. And if you're not getting access, let us know and let us try to fix it right now. All right, before I move on, can I get a thumbs up from people or a cry for help in the chat? All right, love it. All right, so here is your DE, your environment that you built. So this is a virtual computer in the middle of Illinois, in the middle of the Jetstream 2 complex. And so you have some computers running there. They're fully enclaved for you. Nobody can get in and out of this thing except for you. And it will run until you turn it down, until you shut it down. So you are using all of these resources. So it's not like an HPC where you like submit to a queue system and it just shoots you through when it's your turn. You have now secured these and they're yours until you give them up or you run out of hours and it kicks you off. So it's
On
your
the note
Go ahead.
on the note of running out of hours, Ty, can you talk a little bit about how those hours, like how core hours work and the importance of closing out your instances?
Yeah, for sure. So the system doesn't run necessarily on real-time hours. It runs on these specialized units, these SU units, these computational units. And those units are scaled based on sort of how fancy the computer is, how new the computer is, how big the computer is. So where you might think like one SU is like one core for 1 hour, which is like the standard, the reference. But if you're asking for the brand new AI enabled GPU and you want 250 gigs of RAM storage, they're going to have to pull together like 500 machines in order to give you 250 gigs of RAM. And you're going to take some expensive new stuff and they're going to charge you extra SU units for a lot of that. So things like where you go completely out of spec, where on something that would be like a laptop, like the RAM is a really good example. Like 250 gigs of RAM takes a lot of physical computers to actually put something together like that. And so you might be using twice as many computers as you think because it has to activate a bunch of computers in the background in order to maintain that much RAM for you. And so it's sort of hard to keep track of how much you're using. And so it's best to just, as a general rule, pick the smallest computer you can. And so you saw how easy to start one up. You could start up 15 different versions of different computers for different things that you're doing. Just like, don't pull up a 250 gig RAM computer in order to run a single core, Excel spreadsheet thing. It's like, use the smallest computer you can. And then when you're done, you want to go turn it off. So you want to turn the thing on, go use, and then shut it down. That way you're not spending down your budget. We don't have to worry a ton about budget right now in this instance. For the Codefest, you're going to start it up and let it run for the 2.5 days of the Codefest and then turn it off. But generally, as you're getting used to using these resources, it's really good to think about when you're going to turn them off at the end, how long you want them to run. I see a question, hand.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to better kind of understand like what the main point of this is. Like I'm at this same page that you are, and I click on like R under console, and it looks like it's a place that I can code, but I don't really see much. And then when I open the notebooks, it fails. So is this where we're supposed to be coding out of during the Codefest?
It is, but we have a few things that we need to take care of that are a little weird. So the R Studio here, the reason we set up that other one is because this requires a little cheat to get into, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. The regular R, when you open this up, this looks like a Jupyter and Python notebook because it is running R. But if I do R code, then this is actually R code. So it'd be like,
So we can use the same R coding language in here and it'll run.
This is running R. Yeah. So you'd be like, F gets 4, something like that. You're like actually running real, you're running R code in here. As opposed to these are Python kernels. So this is a base kernel, and the macro systems one is that Docker container that we opened. So this has a bunch of preloaded stuff as Python. So here's the Python language, where you'd say something, yeah, or equals. Okay, so this home page, okay, I'll show you how to do the R Studio because it's a bit of, we're working on fixing this, but it's a bug in the system. Let me see. Where's our website? Down here, cyverse hacks. Yeah. I feel like I want to pause and not go over that quite yet because it just is sort of annoying.
Thank you.
I'm gonna go over the R Studio in just a second. I just don't want to get sidetracked and confuse everybody because it requires a hack. But you're totally right. So let me just give you a tour of this and try to make this as easy as possible. First, we have a terminal down here. This would act just like the terminal in your normal computer. Right now it says base, but if I wanted to switch this into my macro systems, I would do activate content macro systems, and now it changes to this macro system image. So now I have the command line version of Python all attached and all those packages set up so I can run Python scripts here. I can run Python scripts in the Python notebook with macro systems. Also notice up here in the right-hand side, when this is the kernel it's using. So I could change which Python kernel I'm choosing to use. But again, the one that Eric set up for us is called macro systems, and it has all the nice geospatial packages and big data packages and stuff on them. So that's how to use the terminal. That's how to use Python. Regular R is just regular R. It just looks like Python, but it's running R, not Python. And then finally, we have our Studio. Now, if I click on our Studio, what happens? It takes me to this, I can't find the server. It's just a problem with it can't find the proper server. So we are going to try to steal this value right here. I need a little, open a text document real quick.
While we're waiting, Ty, everyone who requested an upgrade should have gotten one now. So go ahead and try again if you were having issues before.
It looks like you have one question or a hand up.
Yeah, I just also wanted to make sure, I know before this meeting, we had to like go into cyverse and make a folder with our username. For the Codefest, should we be making all of like our scripts and stuff like that in this folder?
You want to put anything that you possibly can on GitHub. So everything that can go, and I'll show you as soon as we get this tour done, then we go to actually run GitHub in here, and that'll make a little more sense. But everything we can put in GitHub, put in GitHub. GitHub has limits on how big of stuff, so there will be a few data sets that are too big to push to GitHub. Those are the things you want to put in the folder. Okay. So this number right here is the number of a virtual server that was set up for this R to run on. And it's just having a hard time finding it. But we gave you the redirect on how to let it find it. It's just a little bit of a pain in the butt. The beauty is you only have to do this once when you start the instance, and you don't have to go and redo it every time you reopen the website. So if you can do this once at the beginning of the Codefest, you shouldn't have to do it again. But even if you have to do it again, it's just sort of, it takes 1 minute. Okay, so I took that number that when I tried to open, it gave me this number. I took that number, inserted it into these two websites. I'm going to put the first one in. It's going to give me an error again. Then I'm going to put the second one in. And probably got a space wrong. Yeah. Frequently leave a space right in the front there. And now we have a Real R Studio. Okay, so that looks like Real R Studio. That tab, just leave that tab open. All right, so that was from here. It's running all the same packages that are here, but I have RStudio. So when we ask, what's the point? And that's a really good question, right? The idea here is twofold. One, we can give you a bigger, faster computer than a laptop. So right now, assuming you're on a laptop, that maxes out at a particular size, and it's hard to move stuff back and forth between different people. Cyverse gives you the opportunity to go as big as you need to. You can have an infinitely large computer, just like that, and you can scale up and down in how big of the computer you want. Number two is that this is in the cloud. So all of the cloud network speed benefits you benefit from. So instead of being at the end of a long network stream on your laptop where all data have to come in and out of that one path that's very long, that slows you down. These are in the same place as the large data, and they have really, really fast network speeds. So you can bring things in and out of these virtual computers a lot faster than you can bring things in and out of your laptop. Now, in sort of an old school way of thinking about data management, where we just go download the data once, spend 6 months grinding away at that data set to produce one figure and then print it back out, this platform probably doesn't make a lot of sense, right? Because the thing that it's costing you is like it costs you time and money to be on the system, but it speeds up how big of a system you can get and how fast you can move things in and out. So when we think about these cloud optimized systems, a lot of the things that they help us do better are bring in lots of different data sets, huge harmonizations, huge geographic areas where you might never be able to get it all on your laptop or something. So it's sort of just a different way of thinking about moving data around, and sort of a different way of approaching it that lets you go way bigger, but you also have to think about the process in just a slightly different way because you're optimizing a slightly different hardware system. Does that make sense? All right, Jupyter Lab. So this is our home. These are the resources you have. You can do Python, regular base R, RStudio. Just have to go through that pain in the butt little reroute thing. Or that's why we started that other container. So if you just want to use R and you don't want to ever use Python, you can go to just that other container that's just R, and you don't have to do the reroute thing. But that one we pushed to publish. It's just not made public yet. So that's why I'm not sending that to you right now. Now here's the other big thing. Over here on the left, we have the file structure and we have the GitHub util. So the GitHub utility and the file structure relate to each other. So first, I want to be in the top folder. And then I go to here and it gives me this and allows me to do new things. If I'm inside of different folders, I might get different GitHub options. I'll show you how these change in a second. So right now, let's make sure we're in the top folder. And we're going to go clone repository. And an option to clone a repository is going to come up. I'm going to go to the utils, the cyverse utils first. I'm going to copy and paste that back into here. Just that URL from and I hit clone. And when I go back to my file system, I notice that this file was just imported called cyverse utils. So that is why we love GitHub so much, right? We set up this temporary computer that has nothing on it. If you go to a brand new computer and you start just going install Conda or, install RStudio, install this, you're spending like 4 hours just getting the computer up to speed with what you want to do. Here, we can open up the thing and just pull in our GitHub repo. Now, why did I pull in the cyverse utils instead of my repo directly? Well, that is because we need to exchange a key with GitHub to let us push and pull to our repo. It will let you pull sometimes, like the utils one, we set the permissions so you can pull, but you couldn't push back to this repo ever. And most repos you can't pull from just with a normal pull without an SSH key set up. So we're going to just show you how to set up a key. I'm going to open the R version. Actually, yeah. And I'm going to copy and paste the whole R code here and go back to the little R script that I had set up and run that code. There, I'll do this 2 different ways. Now, it asked me for my GitHub username and my GitHub email, and it's easy to think that those are for authentication. They are not. You're going to have a way harder authentication than that. It's going to use dual factor authentication. This is just for tracking. In GitHub, it tracks your commits, and you want to get credit for your commits. So here, it's just saying, when I commit from this virtual instance, hey, it's me. Give me credit for those commits on the GitHub page. The security comes from this matching key pair. So I'm going to copy this. And that's when I have to go back over to my regular repo. I'm going to come back and do this twice. But there also is a video. I'm going to show you the video that Eric made to help you through this also. Okay, once I get back over to my example repo, I'm going to go to my username up here. I'm actually attaching this to my username, not to the repo. Go to settings. Over here, we have SSH keys. Here, I'm going to go new SSH key. Demo. Going to paste the key in there and add it. And now it's added. And now when I go back to the repo, I can actually copy this over. So my group 1 example, I'm going to go to my code, SSH. I know I'm moving fast. Again, we have a video to point you to. And I'm going to copy this to the clipboard. So I'm getting the SSH code or SSH link here. Go back to cyverse. I'm going to go to the top. So here, if I'm inside of that cyverse utilities folder and I go to the GitHub, it takes me to everything I would need to push and pull to that repo. I don't want to push and pull to that repo. I want to go pull a new one. So I'm going to go back to the top layer. So I go to the top folder, the home folder here. Now when I go to this, it gives me this menu again. I'm going to clone the repository. I'm going to put that SSH. I'm going to hit clone and it's pulling now. Boom, there it is, my whole repo. Right, this I know feels so nuanced and so pedantic, and why would Ty possibly be wasting our time with this? But again, you're starting a virtual machine with nothing in it. We want to just go grab all of our work and throw it in the machine instantly. That's what's letting us happen here. We now have all of our documents from our repo. All of the code that we build is all in there. Anything I modify then inside there, let's say I go and I want to make a Python folder. So I hit Python, it opened up a new thing and saved it right there. And And now I can save this. Okay. So now when I go back to here, see, I have hello world in my untracked. And I say, okay, I want to add that to my GitHub. So I'm going to hit plus and it moves it up into staged. That gives me the opportunity to now say, give a comment and hit my commit. And then I push my commit to right here. That is the key cycle. We pull all of our stuff, modify, 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 commit, and push back up there. And now everything is back up in GitHub where it needs to be. Let me pause real quick for questions.
Is there any chance you'd be willing to show again, like, once you make the key in GitHub, how did you get to that point where you made that specific folder and made the hello world? I know that this is a recording later, but.
No, happy to go over it again. Yep.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. Let's see. Okay. So go up here. I'm gonna try delete. Well, didn't like that.
Why don't you just go ahead and do it with the main forest carving Codefest one?
Oh yeah, perfect, good call. Okay, so I go over here because I attached my key to my personal account. Anything that I have permission to any repo that I have permissions on, I can do this with. So I don't have to do it for every repo. I can do it. It's just for me. So right now I can just go grab a different repo and I don't have to get a new security key. So here is the Carbon Codefest main page, the one that you guys copied. And right here under code, there are a couple options. There's HTTPS, SSH, or the CL app.
Should
We're
we
gonna
be doing
go to
this to the
SSH.
group repository that we made?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So whichever group you are. And so pick the SSH one, and then over here on the right, it'll give you the option to add that to your clipboard.
Got it.
Then back in cyverse, you want to first go up to the top level. So you hit this guy right there. That'll take you, make sure you're at the top level. Then when you hit this, it should pop up the blue. And you hit clone a repository. Now I'm going to paste that SSH code that we copied. And then I'm going to clone. And right here, it is cloning that whole thing over. And it's going to be here. So it just dropped that whole folder on there. If I just go into this folder, I just click on that. Now I'm in the repository. Anything I do in here will show up in the GitHub side. So right now I haven't done anything in that folder, so nothing's showing up here.
Can I ask, how does the key that we made relate to this?
So when you make the key, it makes a key pair. One of those pairs you never saw, but it was hidden on the virtual pretend instance computer, and the other one you gave to GitHub. So GitHub is coming and saying to the instance, they're trading keys and saying that they match or don't match. So every time you make a new virtual computer like this, you have to go generate a new key pair and go put it into GitHub. As long as you leave this open, this still has that hidden key in it that GitHub can talk to. But as soon as you kill this, that key disappears and you have to go restart the process. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
So now I'm in that repo. If I go back over here, it shows anything that would happen over here. So now I could say, close all of this. When you're at this home page right here and you open something, it's going to open it in the folder that's represented on the left. So let me go to the top folder and I hit Python. It opens up. See, these are Python ones that I had opened before. So I open a new one. It opens up a new folder in that top folder. Okay, close that. If I instead go into this folder and hit that same button, it's now going to start it in that folder. So now this is where I did the print. Okay, that's all running in Python. And now if I go to save, I just renamed that because it's now in this folder attached to the GitHub repository. If I hit the GitHub button, oh, it'll show up here as untracked. You haven't said track it. So let's say, yep, let's track this thing. Let's commit what it is. Commit that, and then we push. Yes, question.
Yeah, are we pushing, did that push directly to main? Is there a way to control pushing which branch we're pushing and things like that? Because it'd also be, it opens up another question of like, it'd be kind of nice to add some rules so that people can't just add to main and we're forced to add to branch and then require at least one reviewer before putting it to main just to like make sure there's no conflict and stuff.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's all of that sort of comes down to the way you want to manage it within your group. But this GitHub app should have most of that functionality built into it.
Oh yeah, you can select branch above. Cool.
Yeah, so you can check, yeah, which branch do you want?
Make a new one or
you
whatever.
can add different tags. You can, yeah. But I don't see the roles yet, but I'm guessing if you had roles set up in the repo that it would transfer over in some way. But it might hit on the other side, like when you push, it'll drop it into a push request instead, or into a pull request instead of just letting you change it. Yeah, I would definitely invite you to do all that. This is the GitHub app for the thing, so it should have that functionality if you have roles. I just don't usually do those on my team, so I don't know for sure. We have any, let me stop and make room for other questions. Okay, you guys are doing great. Thank you for being so patient. I think we only have one last little thing to go over, and that just transitions us nicely into what we do next week. Okay, so next week is like a little bit more playground sandboxy stuff, like let you get in and we'll talk about some data that are available and how to move them in and out and how to do some basic things in this environment. Today was mainly just login fest, so we can just get everybody up to speed. But the last thing is about moving data in and out from the folder. Tyler, did you want to talk a little bit about that? I'm happy to do it, but give you a chance to talk if you wanted.
Yeah, I'm happy to. So for this Codefest, there's a few different places that we're going to have data available for you. As Ty said earlier, sort of the best practice here for doing cloud-based work is to focus on trying to just mount data directly from the cloud. And we'll talk a little bit about ways to do that using VSI and Stack. That said, we also recognize that that can be unfamiliar, and we also want to make sure that we are providing some data for you so that your team can get going right off the bat and access that data a little bit more as if you were working locally. So your team will have the opportunity to work with both of those types of data. When we go over the Codefest data library, we will talk about what data is in which place. And often you'll see that there's maybe a subset of some data that we have pulled in and that is already on the cyverse data store. That said, you might, for example, want a different subset of Landsat data than we have provided, or some climate data at a temporal resolution that we didn't already provide. And those pieces of data you'll want to access via VSI and Stack. For the data that we have already made available, you will need to move it from the data store to your instance that you're actually working on. And while you can actually work with data on the data store, it's going to be much faster by moving it directly to your instance. So you have some instructions for this on your team webpage, but I can also share my screen with you briefly. And so this is the cyverse data management tab on your team website. And you'll see there's an overview of cloud to instance data access, essentially repeating what I just said. And then the fact that there's pre-downloaded data on the cyverse data store. So within the data store, we have this path, which is to the Forest Carbon Codefest directory within the Earth Lab directory. And this is where we have stored a large amount of data for you to directly access if you would like. In order to move that to your instance, you would open a terminal on your instance and then just use copy commands to move that directly to the instance. So for all of the different data sources that we've made available and that we'll talk about in the future, if they are on that data store, they will have a data store location listed. And you would put that here. For example, if you want a directory that had some of this LC map data that we've added, you would do CP for copy, -R for recursive, the location of that data, in this case, it's a directory, and then the place that you want to move it to. And you'll want to move it directly onto your instance. So you'll move it to home/Jovian. And in this case, I've created another data directory that I'm also putting it into. The same is the case for moving data off of your instance. So let's say that you go and you collect a bunch of data on the cloud and you mount it, or maybe you're using some of the data from the data store that we've put together. You do a bunch of really cool analysis and then you output some figures or a new data set. In order to ensure that that doesn't disappear when you close the instance, you need to make sure that you are copying that information off of your instance and back to the data store. In which case you would do the opposite, where you're going to copy it from wherever you've put it. Maybe you have a figures directory, and then you're going to copy it to this team outputs directory. And each team has a different directory where you can put your figures, output data sets, etc.
So if you don't copy it over and you're like in your code, you reference directly to that folder, it will go get that data, but it will treat it like it's an external hard drive through a really slow connection. And frequently, if it's too big, it'll just drop that connection and your code will just fail out, like as if you had unplugged your hard drive or something. So what he's saying is instead, you start up the computer, make your internal hard drive of the virtual computer as big as you need it to be, pull everything from GitHub, pull everything from your folder. Now you have everything in one place. Then when you're done, send everything out to GitHub that can go to GitHub. Anything that won't fit in GitHub, put in your folder. and then shut down your machine.
And during the event, you will be able to spin up an instance and then just leave that instance for the duration of the event. So hopefully this won't be an issue, but for example, if maybe your team wants everybody to sort of be playing with some data, looking at some different things, and then you decide, okay, we have our workflow built and we just want a really, really big computer to chug away on that for a little bit, you could close out your smaller instances, spin up a really big one, and have it go and do that work.
You can also pull up an instance for every person in your group and have them all pull it and have everybody working on their own independent version and parallelize that way. So you can fire up as many of these things as you want to. Leonard?
Yeah, quick question. Sorry, maybe I missed it. Did you say you could mount like some persistent volume thing so that it's there and you could like mount it between different not VMs, but yeah, whatever they're called.
Yeah, so the
you
cyverse
copy to and from between any instance that you make.
Yeah, so cyverse has a place called a data store, and that is the persistent storage file structure, but it's linked via network to any one of the instances that pull up. So when you make your virtual machine and you log into the data store, it's not a very reliable connection. It's pretty slow and it can lose connections a lot. But if you just mount that volume and then copy stuff over into your virtual machine, then it's really stable and really fast.
And you
Okay,
can
cool,
do that
cool.
by just using a direct copy command like these ones here.
Sweet, very nice.
And that persistent storage is where you're able to send big files out. It's like, oh man, I made this TIFF that is too big for GitHub. I'm going to push it out to the data store, to the persistent storage.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. The only, it's just so easy and just with like remote sensing data to imagine cases that blow up. Like, what if this Landsat is like all available scenes over all years, right? And it's like suddenly you're copying like terabyte plus data just between instances. You know,
Yeah,
like,
exactly. So that is why next week we're going to go over the stack and VSI protocol. And that allows you, these are some cloud optimized formats, which essentially let you do a lot of the computation on the server side, and it just sends you the products. So you can do like masses time syntheses of Landsat data and just get like a couple of GeoTIFFs dropped on your memory at the end. But we'll go over that next week, but cool methods for getting around that problem.
And so that's another reason that we are, for this event, essentially trying to limit most of our analysis to the Southern Rockies ecoregion, just to avoid things blowing up and a team trying to say, oh, we're going to do global full Landsat analysis, and it just gets too big and breaks things. I can stop sharing here. All right. Ty, do you have
with
thing?
the last couple of minutes, we just need to go turn off the instance. Let me just go show you how to shut this thing down. Okay, so this is pretty easy. I'm in the instance right now. I have my RStudio is still going. All of these I could close. This one I could close. I am going to have to do the reroute thing if I close it, but it's still running. Like the computer resources are still allocated. And that's when, so I said first we'd go over the apps and then I would go over the analyses. The analyses, this is the cyverse name for the virtual computer you just started up. So here you can see the many hundreds of these things that I've done in the past. I have one from a couple of weeks ago that's been running for 17 days and is still chugging along. Every 3 days, it wants to shut itself off. So I have to go hit this extend time and it'll say, do you want to extend your time to this? I hit the extend time and now I've extended the time to that. You can hit this a couple times and extend it out a couple months. You just have to be really intentional about leaving it going. So the nice thing about this is that if you forget to turn it off, which often we do, especially at the beginning, it's not going to burn through your entire credit. It's going to run for 3 days and then just shut the thing down, assuming that you forgot it. Okay, so if you want to leave the thing running, you can leave the thing running. If you accidentally forget it, it's probably going to shut it off in 3 days. What our best practice is, though, here's the one that I started right now for the demo. It's still running right now. I want to come and just hit this stop button. It's still dealing with the, okay, yeah, this is the real menu. Terminate. And now that thing is done. So you can go back and see the history of all the things you started. The cool thing here, right? I didn't give any names to these. I just let them have the default name. But maybe for you, you just set up like big, medium, large, and super duper extra large as like 4 general templates. You don't have to go through the apps and set up a new one each time. You come back here and hit this relaunch. It's not going to have all the stuff that you had in it. It's just going to have the general configuration. So the general number of CPUs and the general size of RAM and whatnot. So easy to relaunch from previous stuff. With that, I've just been talking straight at you for 2 hours. So I'm going to go let your brain rest. Next week, I promise we're going to have more fun. We're going to actually play with data and play around with these toys. Thank you for your patience as we just had to sort of like chug through all of these really detail-oriented steps. So if you have questions, bring them next week. We'll just start getting everybody up, right from the beginning. We'll make sure everybody's up to speed, and then we'll go play some data. We do have a few minutes for questions right now if you have them. But I generally want to give people a chance to relax if they needed it.
Thank you.
See you next week, guys.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.